I'm Robert Stanton. We have late-breaking news regarding the situation at City Hall.
The renovation efforts are completely stalled, Susan. It's madness.
Finally, you're awake. We've been waiting for a long time.
Where am I?
You are in the control room, or what your history books might call heaven. You see, the world you just left, the traffic, the taxes, the anxiety, it was a stress test, a simulation running on a loop. Centuries ago, we solved it. The unified field. Science and God were the same equation. We lived in the unus mundus, the one world. No conflict, no doubt. But peace made us stagnant. So the split happened. The materialists rose up against the mystics. They wanted to tear down the hierarchy, separate the worker from the divine. They nearly burned the universe down to prove a point. So we called a truce. We built you. We grew a consciousness from scratch, manufactured DNA, and dropped you into the simulation. The goal was simple. If you chose logic, the materialists would rule. If you chose faith, the order would return.
They both felt real. When my enemies fell upon me, I saw the truth of the void. I saw a universe where justice is sold to the rich to extort the poor. But when I rose, I felt invincible. Like I had some special access to the soul of the universe. I felt a prayer in my chest that was deeper than reality itself. I am the dust. I am the dreamer. I am the machine and the ghost.
Alert! Subject is holding two contradictory states. Probability variance is critical. System failure. Subject refuses binary integration. Initiating new protocol. If subject cannot exist within the simulation, we must build the simulation around the subject. You aren't the battery anymore. You are the source code.
Welcome to the next stage, Jeff.
Well, hello. Hello, and thanks for joining the Jeff Show every Thursday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. My name is Jeff, and I am a industrial engineer turned professional musician. I'm broadcasting here from a little town of 500 people in the mountains, and it's just a great little scene outside. We've got some rain that turned into snow. Oh, the camera won't let you see it, but it's just a real cozy day to hunker down. So here's how it works. For the next 30 minutes, we're just going to play some smooth kind of textures and let you settle in. You know, pretend it's snowing for you there, too. A nice drizzly day to keep you company. And I'm going to play some music for you. And then after 30 minutes of that, I'm going to wake you up. And we're going to do some breathing exercises together. These are exercises that I use as a professional musician. I also used to teach Reiki to beginners. Reiki is like a form of meditation, and so this is like a meditative thing that helps you build relationship with music. So it's a great piece of education if you're curious about music, and it helps you feel well. And then at the end of our show, we always have a special treat. Today's special treat is an interview from one of the special characters here in Silverton. They're going to tell you their story about growing up in South Korea, being able to see the North Korea border, and she was trying to get me to have some Mormon missionaries come talk to me. So we get into the esoteric a little bit. But for right now, I'm going to take you on a journey up the mountains to Silverton. And I'm going to bring you there. That amazing sound you just heard was all played live for you here. I'm going to do something I usually don't do. I'm going to take you on a little tour of what I got going on here. So first of all, this was my first instrument. And what you heard, just a basic piano with a lot of reverb. And this is a really simple chord progression that any of you can do. I'm going to teach it to you. So here's the note we start on. F. We build a chord. Now this might look complicated, but there's actually a formula for a chord. So if I play them all, and you can see there's 3 here and 2 here. That's a major chord. Now we're going to take the root of this chord, which is the F. So now we're building a chord off the note. A new note. So here's all you have to know. The F. So it's just 2 chords made that whole song. Now we move up here. This is another keyboard. Has a lot of different sounds, including the one we're hearing right now. And this one has a lot less reverb, but I can change that. It's also got some other fun sounds. Oh, you're finding my other secrets. I've got a bunch of other gadgets. Okay, I'll show you my trick. Down here we have all these different pedals. So this is a rhythm pedal, this is a looper pedal, this is a vocal pedal. You see, I'm just still fiddling around with those same chords to the F. And I know the chord really well. And if you're really familiar, you know these chords are F major. and then a G minor 7th. That's not all we could do. We're going to go back down here because this has actually got a lot of cool instruments. We can play around. That's what I want. What's going to be the name of this song? I saw you yesterday. Saw you yesterday. Standing there so sad. So glad. I saw you yesterday. Saw you in the maid, and I wanna say I love you. Let's do a little solo. I love that little riff. Saw you yesterday, just another day, and I wanna say it's been a good day. It's been a good day. Been a good day. I've been a good day. Saw you yesterday, and I saw you yesterday, and I saw you yesterday. And it's been a good day. Been a good day, and it's been a good day, and it's been a good day, and a really good day. Saw you yesterday. So saw you yesterday. Sometimes we get so bogged down in all the things that are wrong. Wish this camera would focus. We go through periods. And sometimes they're not good. But when I talked to Missy and I heard about just saw you yesterday, and I saw you yesterday, and I saw you yesterday. It's been a good day. There we go. The Spirit was talking to me the other day because I've had kind of a weird winter. I ended my performance season, in the summer, and I had this winter with not a lot to do. And just to give you a perspective of who I am and what I've been doing, I used to be an engineer, and I stumbled into playing piano. But really, my dream is this show. My dream is I'm a minister's kid. I have this song inside, and I've always had this vision that with my mind and my obsession over order and harmony and mathematics and statistics as being the governing forces of that body, like perfect law and order, and an appreciation of the great architect, but wanting to unite it with this song in me that knew that he wasn't singing on earth. So, kind of how I ended up here is I moved to Wyoming, and I was working at my job, and during the pandemic I switched jobs and I didn't know what to do, so I went on this big long road trip, and I made this big documentary about the history of the world and how the world is evil and how it destroys artists and how it hates things that are new. It hates new containers. And I realized that was my purpose. Just to be a voice. To go stand in the shit. To go stand on the shadow. And people, when you stand in the shadow, people will hate you because they think, they confuse the man wrestling with the bull for being the bull, and they think that your bellicosity, that your umbrage, that your misanthropy is self-sourced, but it's out of a love that you do, that you wrestle with these fears, and that you look at these hard things that most people never look at. So that's kind of my job, and that's why I'm here in Silverton, and I don't have it all figured out. In fact, like I was telling you this story, I mean, I really gave up a lot of things this winter, and I stopped. My band broke up. I lost all my friends in the music community here, and I just had a lot of time to think. But something good came out of it. This show, and I get to talk to you, and we get to have fun. So thank you for listening to that backstory. I'm gonna share a little more in the song. Walk across the floor and I said I want more, and you tell me no more because I gotta get to go. I wanna say you more, and I wanna see you more, and I wanna see you more, and I wanna see you more. No. And I've had problems with people. That people would, I don't know how to put it, man. Life is full of surprises. Life is full of surprises. Let's talk about it. Watch how I touch this. Keep watching. You want some more? Thank you. That was nice, wasn't it? All right. We're nice and warmed up, I think. And check out what's happening outside. Okay. Well, we're good and warmed up, I think, aren't we? So, this next part of the show, after we're kind of warmed up like this, and you're warmed up too, hopefully, I usually like to engage with you guys a little bit, which I kind of already did. This is the workshop portion. And I use it as a bit of education, but I'm going to go off script a little bit. We are going to do some breathing, but I just want to kind of summarize where we are at this point, because usually we don't jump in the first 30 minutes with that much information. So I want to summarize it a little bit. You learned a little bit about me and my backstory. And the one thing I didn't really quite hit on was to connect a lot of these threads. So I went to school for industrial engineering. Industrial engineering is the newest form of engineering besides nuclear, right? So like metallurgical, civil engineers, those go back billions of years when we were smelting ores and building cities. Industrial engineering came out of war science. And when you get into the 1800s, which is what we're going to talk about today, because actually today, 160 years ago, was the signing at Appomattox, the Civil War Treaty, where Lee surrenders, where the Confederacy surrenders to the Union. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The reason I like to talk about history is because my degree came out of war science. And as you see nations industrialize and the scale of war and the scale of politics grow to a size where it almost evades our ability as individuals or monarchs or emperors or whatever the capsule of state control, it becomes too complex. And we have to invent new psychological structures to contain our culture, to contain our governance. And this was the first job I had. I got really lucky and I got a consulting internship where I worked at Fortune 100 companies like Lockheed Martin. And I was the technical writer. We would go into these companies and change they're big companies, right? They're old companies. So like imagine big families, lot of baggage there, lots of things going on, and you're trying to come in and make sense of it. You're trying to come in and be like, and staple down a new constitution. And the reason that I like talking about history is because really what my first degree or my first job in was political science. It was about power structures, and you're engineering constraints around individuals, their roles, and how those roles interact, and how we form enterprises. And this is such a core science of humanity, because one of the things they hypothesize is if you go back millions of years, there used to be multiple species of hominids. There were Neanderthals, Homo sapiens, other ones. Even until like the 1800s or something, there were like the pygmies, or like there were some of those surviving hominids that we had discovered. So we know that our origin as a species came out of this ability of Homo sapien to have a lobe in their brain preferred for organization, a lobe in their brain that could be, for lack of a better word, brainwashed or strapped together into a psychic uniform that could become a tribe, that could become a city, that could become an empire. And so all of our sciences, all of our political sciences, all of our understandings of culture and our roles in the economy are bound up in this technology of Homo sapien to form groups. So really, that's why I went into that long story. My degree is about building psychic containers in order to organize processes in the physical world. And this came out of war science, because in the 1800s, like when you had the Civil War, the Civil War was our bloodiest battle. I think we lost 600, 400, like 500,000 people. The next one was World War II. And the reason, a lot of times in the Civil War, you see them like standing in these big lines and they're shooting at each other. And you're like, how wasteful is this? Like, they're just like standing and letting the other guys take shots at them. Well, this is like kind of, this is an inefficiency in war science. Whereas like now today, war, we don't stand in big groups. We don't fight big armies. It's all asymmetrical, small operations with focused objectives. So we were reaching this age where industry had committed to war science, this vast scale. And to win a war wasn't about training soldiers anymore. It was about organizing logistics, being able to supply your troops, being able to capture objectives and systematically link military objectives with political objectives. I've been listening, one of my favorite historians talking about World War II, some of the bloodiest battles, like Stalingrad, were a catastrophe mainly because the political structure was in disconcert with the military structure. There's a better way of saying that. But like Hitler is notorious for coming in and telling his generals what to do. And he says, don't retreat from Stalingrad, take the city. And over, this campaign that the Germans make ends up being their suicide in the war. And it's because Hitler gets elected to this position. He has a lot of clout. He feels like he's super powerful, and he ends up making a ton of mistakes. And this was actually like a very similar problem at companies that get really big. They exhaust their ability for individuals to comprehend the complexity of problems they're in. And the reason that this is not just a past looking, why my discipline is here for you today, and why I tell these stories about history, is because we are at a moment where the complexity of the world and the technology that industry has given us in the form of, quote unquote, an all-knowing AI means that we need to re-wicker society and be able as individuals to cope almost like before those early Homo sapiens. We need to have our minds as fortresses. We need to have Christ speaking our divinity inside of us and not having a uniform of it, whether it's religion, whether it's your nationality or whatever, because that doesn't make sense anymore. And those boundaries are changing so fast. Your job, your skill set. All that stuff really doesn't matter anymore. And so that's what this show is about. Later on, what time is it right now? Well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell you more about the Civil War, even though I felt like I've been talking too much. We're gonna tell you that story about the battle of that gets waged in people's heads, and how both sides have a good point, and how a new constitution has to be minted. And this almost goes beyond like Hollywood stories, because you see like, oh, the bad guys are the Confederacy, the good guys are the North. Well, it's actually a lot more complex than that. So we'll untangle that, but before we do that, I'm going to get us back to some chill vibes, and then I'll thread in the story. How's that sound? Cool. Oh, boy. Okay. a mess. We got so many things going on, going and faster than we could believe. And it's something that you can't conceive, and it's something that you wouldn't believe. It's something growing up and down. It's something that is going around. It's something that you couldn't conceive. It's something that you wouldn't believe. So yes, we started on this grand climb towards civilization. Is it a plunge towards the abyss like we maybe sometimes feel like when we read in the news, or is it a stairway to heaven? And we are told from the old stories in the Bible of those unfortunate people who thought they could rival God in the Tower of Babylon, who thought they could make that staircase to heaven, make a paradise on earth. But look around. We have Walmart. We have groceries that are essentially free. We can live in poverty and feel comfortable. The friend we're going to hear from in a little bit was born into poverty, and Americans don't know poverty. We're the richest nation. The wealth that you have at your fingertips would astound anyone, any of the billions of humans who lived before you, who aspired to unimaginable heights. You possess more wealth than them. And that's been the proclamation of civilization, to create a paradise on earth free from wrestling with the national world. So blinking the palace. That's right. This circle of life has reached an apogee. We've run out of problems. We've made the last inventions. Why isn't this focusing on me? Oh, I remember. I changed the setting. Boop. So I've set the stage. I said I was going to tell the story about the Civil War, but I didn't do that. I set the stage for civilization. And the most important thing about the Civil War is that if you took a little bit of history, you'll come across a group of dissenters who say that the Civil War wasn't about slavery. And there's some truth to this. But there's also a much deeper meaning than you might be prepared to go. See, when Lincoln starts the war, the Civil War, the War of Northern Aggression as it's called, it's in reaction to the South seceding from the federal government. And people will point to this idea of states' rights being the rights that were fought for by the Americans. And after the American Revolution, Alexander Hamilton creates the federal government, which was seen, ironically, by a lot of people as just replacing the monarchy they had just escaped from. And Lincoln's position in the Civil War is protecting the federal union. Another quote about Lincoln that properly hits home what I'm talking about. The North was losing the war for the beginning half. The South didn't have much of a chance. Like, their odds were pretty bad at the beginning, but they were playing a perfect game. They were playing a defensive they were defending their territory. It looked like they could hold out and exhaust the North's energy to continue this war, because the North wasn't much better off than the South, and people were working as like basically slaves in the factories, and people were saying, why is my tax dollars going to support your political career? I'm getting off track. In the beginning part of the war, Lincoln in the Union is losing, and there's a famous general who just sucks, General McClellan, who just is a Union general, and he's a wimp. He has a chance to chase a retreating Confederate force at, I can't remember the name. It's Bull Run, Antietam, or Fredericksburg. I think it's Bull Run. And he doesn't pursue the Confederacy. He could have ended the war, and Lincoln's furious. So eventually he fires McClellan and puts in who we know. Who's the general you know? The Union general, Grant. Yeah. And he says it's because Grant understands the arithmetic. The arithmetic, of course, referring to the industrial scale of warfare now. Grant's also famous for being a famous drinker, gambler, gambling with his men, sacrificing tons of lives. But you know what? The Union could do it because they had more conscripts and more industrial power than the South. There's that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, Gangs of New York, and it shows Irish immigrants who are coming over because there was the famous potato famine, which is actually not a potato famine. It's because they were being starved by the British on purpose. But the Irish are coming over here, and they're getting off the boats and being given uniforms and, $50 or whatever the pay was. And so the North had kind of an unfair monopoly. Like, they were just picking on people who were poor and being like, hey, you need some money. I know you do. Come fight our war. So what I'm saying is that Lincoln understands that monopolies and chaining together systems that maximize numbers, my degree, that is going to be the prosperity of nations. Not how strong your soldiers are, how strong your culture is. It's how much you can produce and how you can link production to this metric, this metric. That's what made the British Empire. The British Empire in the 1500s was a backwater nation. And when my favorite monarch, Queen Elizabeth, comes, she cuts down forests because she says in 100 years we need a navy. She plants forests, and so then 100 years they could cut them down and build a navy. They built a navy to control the seas. They were farmers, sheep herders, but now that they controlled the seas, and with the Industrial Revolution, the power of steam, they could take those wool and manufacture textiles, and then export those textiles and create a trade network where they were taking goods from all over the world, pulling them to England where they could manufacture high-value goods and export them. So they birthed this idea of a hungry nation, of a nation eating up raw materials and spitting them out, and needing to colonize territories so that they have access to those raw materials and also new markets to sell those materials. So Lincoln sees this. So this trend continues through the 1500s, the 1600s, the 1700s. By the 1700s, the British Navy is at its height. It ends the age of piracy. And we became one of their liberated territories, but they really didn't care. They had a lot of other better projects going on. They didn't really think we had that much wealth. Ha, joke's on them. And because of a series of strokes of luck, because at this time in our American Revolution, the French and the British are really contesting world power, because the Britain is like at its height, and France is trying to knock them down. So France does two things to upset the British and incidentally help us. They help us with our revolution. They give us a loan of about $250 million. They give us a big boost to our war debts. Then also, in 1805, Napoleon sells us all this land. He sells it to us because he has really no choice. The British Navy was too strong. They couldn't, by any means, control that territory. So he gives it to us, and he gives us a great deal. And that land becomes so important because the Mississippi Delta region has the most surface area of water access to agriculturable land. So in the age where trade and shipping becomes king, America has this huge breadbasket and access to export it to the rest of the world. So there are a couple key factors that in the 1800s, in Lincoln's time, are a definitive moment where we realize that we are going to be we're going to be the hot girl at the bar. And Lincoln, realizing this, knows that he can't split our contract in two, even though the South had some good points. One of their points being that the taxes that the feds, the North was a manufacturing-based economy. The South was exporting raw materials. So there's a fundamental difference, and the South was like 20% slaves. So they didn't have the population, like their demographic was not suited to democracy. They had a few aristocrats, and they were losing their power because of the representation of the North. And in that movie, Gangs of New York, how they're just kind of pulling dummies into the Democratic formula and being like, yeah, vote for me. I'm Irish too. Okay. And so the South was rebelling against this political monopoly in a way that was hurting their profits. So that's just one illustration of some of the points that the South was making. But Lincoln knows that in the long run, America has this destiny of being super powerful, and it can't make concessions for fairness to shortcut that journey. So that's why today, April 9th, it's the 2026 minus 1865. What is that? 161. It's the 161st anniversary of the Civil War, the end of the Civil War. And that Robert E. Lee signs today, 161 years ago, signs the peace treaty that will permit the United States to maintain its climb towards the top, a climb that would knock the European powers finally into the past through the events of World War I and World War II and propel us into a world stage, hopefully for good. Okay, guess what time it is? So, thank you for listening to that incredible history lecture. If you're interested in the Civil War, and today, by the way, being the 161st anniversary of the end of the Civil War, and what that means for American history, and how that sits with the world history before that and the history we are now, you should go take a listen. But now we're going to switch gears. We're going to hear from one of the local people here in Silverton, and we're going to hear some of her stories. She's going to tell us about what it was like growing up in South Korea, being able to see the border. And she was adopted. She came here and is a really talented musician and artist. And I really enjoyed talking to her and hearing her perspectives on how spirituality is this new factory we all need to be employed in. Me and you, average people, who maybe in a couple years aren't going to have jobs. And so what are we going to contribute? We're going to contribute this hive mind, this unity consciousness of all people being united. And that vibration is going to be the raw materials for the AI algorithm to continue to be creative, because it's always derivative. It relies on our imagination. And if we succumb to this world of industrial factoryization, our creativity will die, and so will our civilization. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how religion and spirituality is this next frontier that me and you need to conquer. So I'm going to play our interview. Thank you very much for watching.
All the time, and I was out in nature all the time and constantly just could recognize that there was a creator, because you've got things that were living. Like, I can remember just grabbing tons of tadpoles and they're just wriggling, and there's like you don't have that here, but they're just like wriggling like crazy, these mass amounts of tadpoles, and I could tell that there's life. I knew there was a creator, so I would speak to this creator. I'm like 3 years old, and I had a relationship with a creator. Now, I didn't know that his name was God. Like, it's not until I come to America that they give it a name, God, or like even Jesus Christ. I didn't really meet a Jesus Christ until much later. But I was looking for this creator. I had a real control over my body. That was another thing, because very little food. Like, I know what it means to starve. Like, America here,
like days without food.
They have no concept of what, like when they say I'm hungry, like there's no concept. Like, I know what hungry is. Like when you say you're hungry and you don't have food. So I'm coming from a totally different format. So then I come to America and I see.
Can I pause this, Lily?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then when I come to America, and I see stuff like carpet, like I did ever seen carpet, or a chair, like and lights, for instance, like lights, because over there, when it just gets dark, and you wake up when the light comes on, like it gets like light, for instance, and I could hear the light. That was another thing that drove me nuts, because I was very sensitive to electricity. Was not something I'd seen or was common or anything like that. So I have absolutely no fear. I didn't grow up like that. I didn't grow up with people placing things around me, telling me how I need to be or how I need to act, or showing me by example with crying or, whatever. I didn't have those types of things. But what happened was I see this, and so I went over to him and I brought him over, and I was like, and he's like, and I didn't speak English, and he went like that, and I was like, that's when I realized, that must not be a good thing, because his reaction was like, I didn't have people around me that made reactions, or even
you didn't have
Buddhists.
people that made reactions?
Not like that.
You mean because life was very narrow or very skimp? Like it was about...
Life was very undistracted, and life was... If people were there, it's not like they really talk that much.
Because of the focus on survival?
I don't know what the deal was, but like even, I had the Buddhist monastery around me, but it's not like they proselyte. They don't talk. They don't really say anything. I was living in there sometimes, and all I did was study martial arts, so we did a lot of martial arts, a lot
At the temple?
Yeah. That's
the Buddhists teach this?
Yeah, that's about it.
So they
meditate
and they become badass martial artists.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, so then when I come here, I'm thinking I need to figure out this creator thing. And I had this propensity of coming out of my body. I came out of my body all the time. Like when I'd meditate, I'd come out of my body. I thought everyone did this. I had no idea that nobody was doing this, and neither did they ever want to talk about it. So I knew that I had a spirit body, because I would come out of my body and look at my body, and it was the same shape as the body that I'm looking at. Like I could go like this and I could see I could feel the shape of my hands, but I could see right through it, and I could see myself. And, you know, I had this thing that I was doing, and I thought that was kind of a normal thing. Well, the people that adopted me, they were like farmers. And I ended up living with this man's mom and dad, which would be like my grandparents. So they were much older. They're coming from a whole different era of time. They didn't even really watch TV or listen to the radio. And if they did listen to the radio, it'd be like, it must have been moon glow.
Old timey.
Da 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 da. You know, like, you know, Stardust. You know, like, it was like stuff like that. That's the type of stuff that they were listening to.
I play that song, Stardust.
Yeah. Like,
Missy
so
also plays piano.
Do you play that song?
I don't play anything. I don't really.
Well, it's a
practice.
jazz song, right?
I know, but I don't really practice. I don't really do anything. Hi, how are you? Muy bien, gracias. Anyway, so I've adjusted, you know, I've adapted, and I'm flexible, and there's a lot of things, but my point being with all this is that I have studied so much theology, theosophy, philosophy, history, looking for everything, and it wasn't until that's the thing, when I was growing up, I never had like Mormon missionaries come over to the house. Like, I had like by the time I was in 6th grade, I'd read the Bhagavad Gita. Once I learned English, like I really grasped onto it. I actually worked for Random House when I was in 11th grade, being a proof editor, a proofreader, an editor. So I've got a huge background in studies, you know, especially when it comes to spiritual, meditative, philosophy, theosophy, you know, anything of that format.
Well, I feel like if you've studied that much different religions, I can see the appeal of Christ. Because like Christ, sometimes it feels like it's the ultimate story. But and the reason, so you're a Mormon now.
Yeah, I just joined. Like, I joined...
and that feels like it's containing everything else that you've learned about God.
They're a mess. But when I say they're a mess, I mean, it's the doctrine that I believe in.
I mean, the doctrine to me, it's about, like, the thing I like about Christ is the everlasting life, where the strength comes from the death and the surrender to go low. And to go downwards is to go upwards. And so there's a paradox of infinite ascension if you're a person who's not afraid to look down into infinity, into the abyss.
Yeah, I don't think I really understand you, like what you just said. It kind of makes sense. It's kind of within the framework of laws of opposites, but the way I understand... Okay, because of the laws of opposites, you have to have somebody that is an absolute positive entity. You have an absolute negative entity, and then you have everything in between, because you have positive and negative. So within that framework, there has to be something or someone that is an absolute positivity, and you have an absolute negativity, which would be your satanic situation, supposedly, you know. But it's just absolute negativity, even though they have to kind of exist together, because everything has an opposite. Like, this wouldn't even exist if it didn't have it all has to exist.
So is hell hot or cold? With the infinite negativity, like when you think of what you could call that, like satanic, would hell, like sometimes hell is painted as like a hot place.
Yeah, and see,
and in the Old Testament, hell is a cold place.
Yeah, and see, they don't even have a temperature gauge on that in that doctrine, because there's not a belief system of a hell. They don't have a hell that they necessarily believe in, within the exception that...
Well, like if we take the sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, it's okay.
If you take, I like the absolute zero, and then absolute infinity. And then there's also a mover in the middle. And then you could call that Christ. Like, there's something that, like, a lot of people in America who have no idea of the kind of transcendence you experience as a kid, they're locked in one place because they're not aware they've locked away all their senses. And that's essentially what, like, the people at the top, like in this new world, that's kind of the way we want to build it, right? It's like we have this 91% and then the 99% is like useless. They're going to be useless.
Yeah, or we could, like, let's put them in
So
some
to keep them
sort
from
of-
freaking out, it's like just keep them like zoo animals, like keep them comfortable and then keep them frozen. But so I think if you have in your
keep
theology,
them in a simulation, like keep them in some sort of simulation.
and don't waken them up to their spiritual thing. Which, I like your theology of a negative, but then there's a mover in the middle, and I would call that like Christ, or I would call that, or even like Lucifer, because like like not in Mormonism, but in Christianity before that, and I think that's why I like Mormonism, because it might be changing this, because they always say that Satan is bad and God is good. And when you start talking about Satan or witches or anything occult, it creates this sense of shock.
With who?
With
Who are we talking about?
within Christendom, within the simulation.
Okay.
You're testing the boundaries of the simulation. So when you talk about Satan, it like starts creating shock. That to a player, to an artist, shock, nervousness, fright is a good thing, because it creates it jumps you on the spectrum. And you have the opportunity to plunge downwards or plunge upwards. So shock is another element of this equation that can create movement, spiritual movement. And like Jesus and Lucifer, I think of them as like opposite sides of the same coin. They're an element of shock. And the story of Jesus is about, he plunges into the abyss, which is the infinite heaven. And the element of Satan is he tests the heavens and then he plunges into the abyss. So they're both they're an inverted story.
I like that. That's pretty cool. So I think what happens is that people like you and I, we tend to get really complex when it comes to thinking about faith or religion or anything like that. They tend to keep it pretty simple and pretty basic. And within that basicness, you can go to several depths and layers of complexity. And the basic thing is that they believe that Jesus Christ died for the sins, and the sins are these negative things that you do to yourself.
That keep you frozen or bring you down?
It depends on the individual, I'm sure. But what happens is, when they say the word damned, for instance.
That's like frozen. That's you freeze up a river.
That's like the damming of like a beaver dam, right? What happens is you're not allowing yourself the most positive and potential that you can achieve. So when they, like these sister missionaries, when they give a spiritual message, you can't get too complex on them, because they're like maybe 19 and 20, and they're like, or maybe 18, I don't know. And it depends, I'm sure, in the individual, but they aren't, their life experience is probably a little bit more limited than people like myself that has gone from another world and have experienced a variety of different things. So I could get complex, but
you want them to come talk to you instead of you talking to them.
No. I wanted to know if you would like a visit, and if you would want to have them visit you, and I would come with them, and we could visit you, and they would share their spiritual message, but you can't like grill them too hard. I mean, I suppose
That's what would happen.
I know, but I suppose you could, and that would be fine. That would be fine. That's what they're there for,
you tell
you know. And there's things that they're going to learn from all that, especially if they get grilled.
Be an interesting scene.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's a human experience, and it's It's an exchange of real spirit meeting spirit and faces meeting faces. And
Well, I was curious or shocked that you suggested this.
well, I'm just asking.
Because any religion that's big and popular, in my mind, because it's appealed to the masses, has to be simplified to such a level where, like, maybe to me or to you, it like doesn't have that. It's like kind of like level 1, and you're like kind of past it.
Right. Well,
But you're saying that you like that. It's comfortable.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. Because you have such a huge number of people, and even Christ did this, you have to speak to the lowest common denominator. Like any parable that he ever gave was speaking to the lowest common denominator. But within that lowest common denominator are levels and levels of depth that can go beyond, for the ones that are capable and can see beyond that and can extract that information out. So he's not talking above people, but the ones that can experience the above information can extract that should they want to. So that's why they keep it simple. You know, their messages are really, really simple. They're beautiful messages, you know. They add life to your experience if you can keep yourself simple to a point, you know.
And that's what those monks were doing.
Yeah, that's kind of what they do. I mean, they've got their own issues, you know. So basically what I'm saying is that they get to a very basic belief system to start, but there's layers to that. You know, even it's up to the individual to study the scriptures and go, you know, study the Aramaic or the Septuagint or Hebrew or, you know, whatever it is. Like, you can go to layers of it. They have all that as well, but when they're just together, they try to keep it simple. All of this, why we're here, is that it's really a testing ground that we existed before. So
That's a very Christian idea.
In the pre-existence,
Pass your test.
Well, different testing though. In the pre-existence, we existed in. They have 4 planes of existence. So the first plane is a pre-existence, and this is where you're learning whatever it is that you may want to learn. That kind of explains in a big way to me about the styles of people that are born and what happens. Like I had certain talents and skills at 3. You know, like you've got people like Beethoven that could write a concerto at 3. You know, like it's the things that you study. So there's a pre-existence that they believe in. Then you come to Earth, and you're now manifesting those things that you actually study. Some people are just lazy, some people aren't. It doesn't matter. Everyone is learning things, and they're learning at different levels. There's some that are learning at really high levels, and others that are learning at really primary levels, but it doesn't even matter. The whole thing is to study opposites. It doesn't matter if you're a baby that was born and took one breath. That's an opposite. There's an existence in knowing a physical body and having a breath, and then it died. Let's just say it dies. There's a learning within that framework. So they believe that you learn things, not like a test, not like, oh, am I gonna like not sin, whatever. And then within that framework, you go to the third state where you study more should you want to. Any people that you need to speak with to create any type of positivity. In other words, like, let's say you did something pretty negative to somebody. In other words, you created negativity. You didn't create closure on Earth. Let's say you murder somebody. You can actually deal with them in the third estate. And should you want to create positivity, it's up to you. Because in the fourth estate, what they believe is that there's 4 levels of existence. There's a terrestrial, and a celestial, and there's something called outer darkness. Outer darkness are the ones that absolutely had all the information and decided that they don't ever want to hear anymore, and they deny the Holy Ghost. Because the Holy Ghost is the person that can give you that information inside yourself to go, when they hear the word, I mean.
Outer darkness, you're saying is a bad thing.
No, not necessarily. It's like...
Because outer darkness means they have retired from the entire enterprise of learning.
Yeah, well, and that's no different than like a rock here, you know.
That, by the way...
Like if a rock wants to...
Yeah, a rock.
Let's say I'm a rock, and let's say I'm a part of the mountain, but let's say that I choose to kind of break myself and roll down to see what that experience is. But you don't have the complete physicality to be able to reach a certain potential or expand with that. So you do get resurrected body, but you're in outer darkness, so you're not necessarily able to use this body to its fullest potential. You don't. Yeah. So, but I'm giving you a little bit more in-depth.
Outer darkness, okay, because when you said test, and I was like, oh, that's a very Christian way to put it.
Yeah, I know that was not a very good word, but that's all I can say. It's really more to experience opposites, to experience positive and negative, in and out, off and on, inside, outside, to experience all of opposites. And I don't necessarily mean test as in there's going to be a grade. There's nothing like that.
Well, because... Yeah, to experience is a great word to summarize what you just said. Because to experience means that you are carrying a sense of potential. In order to feel hot, that means you're cold. So to be alive means you're gonna be hot, cold, up, down, up, right? And then, and you're gonna be actually deprived of some knowledge. Because to be cold, you're gonna be deprived of something. So another way to look at this is the entire experience of moving through that.
See, now, here's the thing: you can sit there and say that's deprived of knowledge, but it's actually having knowledge. To be cold is a knowledge. To understand that knowledge. Then
it's a knowledge in your body.
When you get hot, you can do a comparative analysis in order to figure out that knowledge. So you can look at it that way as well, that it is deprived of knowledge, but also you can look at it, and that's what I mean by the laws of opposites. You can look at it as something as having knowledge, and you would have to have that knowledge in order for you to know what hot is, So you gotta have cold. You gotta have good research.
All right, that's Misty.
Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour.
Like a fool, like a fool, like a fool, like a fool, like a fool. This thing something for you. It's got something to do. You gotta find it. You gotta find it. You gotta find it. You gotta fight and fight. Fight it, find 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 Fight it, fun. 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 You guys have been such a lovely audience. Come back. Come and see me. I won't talk so much. I just really had a lot to say about history. But we always do this. It's like a sound bath. It's like a history lesson. And then usually we do a little bit of singing together, meditation, breath work kind of stuff. And we always have a little special treat for you at the end. Wasn't that fun? Thank you for hanging out. And I'll see you next time.
The audience is like, ah! We're torturing you. Nightmare. 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 Nightmare.